Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the ninth week of the spring 2016 semester of British literature. All right, so here we are. We are moving right along through the Victorian period. Last week, you got a couple of fun readings. You got Elizabeth Gaskell's Old Nurse's Story, and then you got Christina Rossetti's Goblin Market. So I'll be grading those postings pretty much soon. Now that I'm not making so many comments on the postings, now that I'm pretty much putting a number on it, then you can go ahead and expect me to get those graded much sooner than I have in the past. It's much easier just to throw a number on there than it is to make all those comments. So, and less time consuming also. All right. Remember the email that I sent you last week? Tonight, which if you're watching this on Monday means tonight. If you're watching on Tuesday, that ship has sailed. But tonight would be the last time to actually withdraw if you wanted to withdraw without getting an F. Now, the truth of the matter is, most of you don't need to worry about that. I got lots of people with A's and B's in this class. So, for the most part, withdrawal is not something you even want to consider because you're doing well enough. But if it is something you need to consider, you've got to make your decision by tonight. All right, this week, we got two things going on. We've got the woman question. I want you to remember as you read these, first you're going to read Queen's Gardens by Ruskin, where he's going to prescribe what a woman is supposed to do. And she's supposed to be the kind of the angel of the house. She brings the home with her wherever she goes. She is the orderer, and she kind of runs the home. Whereas the man's job is to go out there into the world and fight the battles and bring home the bacon, if you will, or bring home the paychecks, and to protect the woman from any harm that will come to her, unless, and here's the caveat, unless that woman goes seeking to harm herself, at which point the guy can just say, hey, whatever. So that's Ruskin. Of Queen's Reign was written by Besant. This is going to be published towards the end of the Victorian era. The Queen's Reign is actually a look at the woman of 1895 versus the woman of like 1945. And notice the striking differences between the women's attitudes, the fact that women can have jobs in 1895, the fact they can own property. And notice how striking these differences are just in a 50-year time period. Women now have more freedoms. They still don't have every freedom. They're not allowed to vote yet, and they can't hold positions in law and things like that. But they have come a long way in a short period of time. And Walter Besant is going to show that. The Empire and National Identity. Read that opening chapter because that's going to give you a lot of information. At one point, England claimed dominion over 1/4 of all the land mass in the world. That includes places like Canada, Australia, several island countries, places in Africa, India at the time. So at one point, Queen Victoria was the queen of 1/4 of all the land mass in the world. That is a lot of land. And that's amazing that a little island like England was able to become that kind of an imperial power. So read that introduction. Then read the various ideas on India. You've got Thomas Babington Macaulay, who you have seen before. You saw him in the talking about how Southey was a little bit misguided on his ideas of industrialism. Now you're going to see his ideas of an Indian education. And if you didn't hate him when you read the industrialism part, you'll probably hate him after reading the diary, or not the diary, the Minute on Indian Education. Because he's really going to talk about British superiority and how they're superior to the Indians, and how the English language is superior to the Indian language, and how not every Indian kid can be as smart as English kids and things like that. Then you're going to read William Howard Russell's My Diary in India. This is going to be about something called the Cawnpore Massacre. The Cawnpore Massacre, essentially what happened was all these British folks were living high on the hog. They were living behind in walled estates. They were eating caviar and drinking champagne all the time, while the Indians, who, this was their land, and by India we mean India, not Indian Native American. We're going to see that they're not living so well. They're living in poverty. And if one of them were to enter a party, one of these, white people's parties, it would be like the Oscars was last night. People would be saying, what's he doing here? What's that dark-skinned guy doing here? So eventually, after a while, a group of Indians rebelled by massacring a lot of, in Kanpur, they rebelled by massacring every English person that lived there, man, woman, and child. And in India, everybody was alarmed, like, how can this happen? We've got to take action. So Russell was actually a journalist who was living in India, and he looked at it objectively and said, well, wait a minute, can you blame these guys for not being happy with the differences between the British and the Indians? So keep that in mind as you read about, and some of that description is pretty graphic, but keep that in mind as you read that. So two major issues that were raised, and all these readings are very short. It's not going to take you very much time to read these readings at all. Also, remember to use the PowerPoint slideshows to help you out a little bit as well. So all these short readings, the PowerPoints, and the introductions, they should help you understand the woman's position and then the British superiority position of the imperialistic age. And these are all later in Queen Victoria's reign. These are all going to be things that are published around the 1880s, 1890s. So that's it. Remember, if you have questions, you can always email me. You can always send me or give me a phone call when I'm in my office, and I'll be more than happy to help you out.